Welcome into the Cleveland Browns Report by Chat Sports. I am your host, Matthew Peterson, breaking down the latest news and rumors after an ugly Week 16 loss against the Saints. The Browns officially out of the playoff race. And it kind of feels like the sky is falling in Berea right now with Kevin Stefanski's job status in 2023 sort of in limbo. So we're going to go through the latest news and rumors, and we're going to start the show off with this story that came out on Twitter.com today. You might have heard of it. Kevin Stefanski, did he bench Myles Garrett? Yeah, for Bernie heads. He indeed benched Myles Garrett to start the Saints game. And producer Patrick Siemens got WTF eyes right now. I know. So let's jump into the story here. So Mary Kay tweeting out during Stefanski's presser with the media today that Stefanski said Myles Garrett sat out the first drive because it was a team thing, my decision, and he would not elaborate. Now, that's not too uncommon for a coach not to elaborate. They didn't really do that when Perrion Winfrey was a healthy scratch for a period of time. Now, I want to say right now, one, I don't have an issue with any player not being put above team rules or the law and him being held to the same standard as everyone else. But benching Myles Garrett may be a fracture in Kevin Stefanski's relationship with the locker room that he really may not be able to afford right now, as maybe he knows more than we do about how secure his job is. But if it truly is a bit of a hot seat, it's a bold strategy when you're already losing some members of people you need in your corner, and then to go to your locker room and bench your starting star, Myles Garrett, for the first drive. I have no idea what happened, though. I don't know what happened. I don't know what Myles Garrett did to warrant being benched. I don't know if or what any team rule that he broke, but I don't think Kevin Stefanski would do this lightly. It's not really a part of Myles Garrett's character to be a hindrance or a nuisance in the locker room. So this is definitely bizarre and new, but something happened, and I got to give some credit to Kevin Stefanski because for a guy that I've criticized, just looking too deep into his play sheet, he's keeping players accountable, even when they're out of the playoff. Well, at the time they weren't, at least, but with their backs against the wall, he's still not going to bend the rules even for star players. Cameron Justice, by the way, tweeting this out. I thought you should see it as well. That Stefanski said they haven't gotten into conversations about guys like Myles Garrett and Nick Chubb who have been battling through or playing through injuries sitting the last two games. Wouldn't be shocked. The only thing that might surprise me a bit, though, is you remember Baker got shut down for Week 18 against the Bengals last year. Shout out Case Keenum. He went 2-0 as a starter. Now, there actually was a decent amount of, waves and like a riptide in the locker room, if you will, of players not being thrilled that Baker's sitting for the last game when this is a team sport and he's bailing on his team for the last game of the season so he can start rehabbing. That was a thing. So it definitely would be interesting to see if that logic or that standard was applied to Myles Garrett and Nick Chubb for the last 2 weeks here. Before we get any further in the show, we did have a watch party, of course. If you haven't tuned into a Sunday, or in this case, a Saturday watch party, make sure you do so this Sunday against the Commanders because we always have a ton of fun, and I want to give some shout-outs right now to some notable members and players of our Week 16 watch party. The Super Chat MVP went to Remarkable Zay. He's a Panthers fan. I doubt he's watching this right now. He just tunes in every single Sunday because he's a closet Browns fan deep down. We all know. The Super Chat VP, right, the vice president, that goes to Michael Minzer. He just sent in Super Chat after Super Chat after Super Chat. So shout out to you, Michael. Thank you very much. And then the live chat chief, Ty Man the Buckeye, always in the chat. I felt he was pretty deserving of this award for being a big staple of the channel during our watch parties. Moving on to the second segment of the show. Could we get a Jedrick Wills trade? I'm going to give it just one Bernie heads, right? Small shreds of truth. I don't think you can completely dismiss this rumor and this story about a potential trade coming in the works for Jedrick Wills. So rumors have been all over the internet ever since the Jack Conklin extension happened about what Jed Wills' future is with this team, right? Does Jack Conklin getting a 4-year contract extension mean that Jedrick Wills isn't a part of this team's long-term future and he's not the Joe Thomas, the next left tackle for a decade plus here. Now, Wills has either 1 or 2 years left on his contract, depending on if Andrew Berry picks up his 5th-year option this offseason. But the Jack Conklin contract extension that caught us all by surprise this past weekend, here's all the details. 4 years, $60 million, an average of $15 million, and 31 guaranteed. So, plenty of people on Twitter and just in Browns rumor boards and message boards and all that looked at that and goes, well, that can't be good for Jedrick Wills because they just gave all that money that maybe Jed Wills was going to get to Jack Conklin, right? Jack Duffin, who's a great Twitter follow if you haven't followed him already, tweeting out, wow, if I'm Jedrick Wills, I would be worried about my future in Cleveland. And I can see where Jack's coming from because there's definitely, I mean, it's like a kid's menu at a breakfast restaurant. It's not a very complex connect the dots here. It is simply Jack Conklin got the bag, not the bag, but he got a 4-year contract extension. That means Jedrick Wills, there's no money left over for him. Not so fast. I don't think that's the case. All right. So first off, Jedrick Wills' 5th-year option is projected to be at $13.9 million for 2024. There's 2 ways of looking at these 5th-year options. It's either a massive overpay if it's a first-round bust, or it's great value and it's like Justin Jefferson and you're going to be, so happy that you're only paying him $13.9 million when on the open market on the free agency scale, he could be getting way more. I don't think it is one or the other. I don't think it is because Jack Conklin got a 4-year contract extension, that means there's no money left over for Jedrick Wills. Allow me to explain. Remember that contract for Jack Conklin? $31 million guaranteed. So the way I look at that is 2-year, $31 million, right? 15 mil-ish for the first 2 seasons. Maybe there's 27, 28 million over the first 2 years, allowing the Browns to get out of that contract for the last 2 years. So if that's the case, if it is basically like a 2-year, $31 million contract, well, that coincides exactly when Jedrick Wills would be a free agent after his 5th year. So it's not like there's money in 2025 that's going to Jack Conklin that's not going to be able to go to Jedrick Wills. No, I think this just ties up Conklin for the next 2 years. Jedrick Wills very well may be on his rookie contract still for the next 2 years. So it's still very plausible for him to get a contract after 2 years with Conklin. The Browns move on after most, if not all, the guaranteed money is used up. And if Jed Wills plays well the next 2 seasons, he could be getting a nice contract extension like Conklin did. Now, the offensive line depth chart for 2023, these are just the guys currently under contract for 2023. Like, no Ethan Posek because he signed a 1-year deal, so you slot Nick Harris back in there. But Andrew Berry clearly wanting to roll it back and keep a lot of the same familiar faces and names in the same spots. So, Jedrick Wills, as of right now, is going to be the left tackle of this team. If they decide, you know what, we want to move on for Jedrick Wills, and we'll talk about that in a second, James Hudson is definitely a name to watch for. I thought Hudson would be the starting right tackle next year. Go cheap with Hudson on his rookie contract and take that $31 million guaranteed you gave Conklin and give it to someone like Deron Payne on the interior D-line. But hey, what do I know? So now I'll let you guys be the GM, though. Would you trade Jedrick Wills for a second-round pick? You're not going to get a first-rounder for him. One, the biggest allure of offensive linemen isn't so much in free agency. You usually don't see free agent offensive tackles getting, boatloads of cash unless they're sort of in the top tier status. A lot of teams love to go cheap in the draft, right? Draft a guy, have him for 4, maybe 5 years, sort of reset the clock if he's not a franchise guard, tackle, center, whatever. So would you trade Wills for a second? Yes or no? For me, I'm not quite sure you'd get a second rounder. But if someone did call, say a team like the Chicago Bears, as I look at our Bears Now host desk, right? They want to protect Justin Fields. They wanted to sign Jack Conklin this offseason. The Browns are keeping him. And maybe Andrew Berry decides we need some draft capital, right? We don't have a first-round pick. We don't see a long-term future for Jed Wills. So instead of just playing him out the next year, maybe 2, we get a second rounder. We can draft an offensive lineman, or we can just roll with James Hudson, and we can take that second rounder and use that a bigger position of need, which could be defensive line. We got more to get to on today's show, but these Deshaun Watson jerseys are still on sale. I don't know if Fanatics doesn't know when Christmas ends, but they are still under $100. So if you forgot to give someone a Christmas gift and you aren't going to see him for a little bit, order it right now. Chatsports.com/Watson jersey. Links in the comments and the description. And get an awesome Deshaun Watson jersey for yourself, a loved one, on sale today. I want to give a quick shout out to Joshua Miller, longtime viewer at the channel, donating a super thanks saying, "Think I know what's going on with Cade York. I heard a report that special teams coach Mike Prefer brought in someone to clean up York's kicking mechanics. I watched some of his college kicks and most had a natural draw. Now they're all over the place. Right, left, knuckling, shanked. Petey, maybe you can look into this a bit further. Just another reason for Prefer to be fired. Merry Christmas to all." My Prefer's saving grace right now is Jerome Ford on kick returns. Other than that, special teams has provided zero spark beside a blocked Justin Tucker kick. Now, as for Cade York, listen, kicker Twitter is a whole separate world to dive in. Cade York has definitely been inaccurate, and he's been unpredictable in every single way. There has been some talk of maybe Corey Bojorquez is a bad holder. Kind of cost him the job in Buffalo, and it kind of cost him Mason Crosby's worst years when Bojorquez was the holder. So there's some truth to that, but Jay Feely, a longtime kicker, was like, no, I watched all of his holds. They're good. Listen, Cade York, I think he is just acclimating to kicking in Cleveland. I know there's been some discourse about whether or not it's actually hard or easy to kick at First Energy Stadium. I'm going to say it's difficult. Right by the lake, the wind. I'm going to say, yeah, it's pretty tough. I'm just going to hope for a second-year bounce-back season. Let's move on to our final segment of the show. My mind changing on Kevin Stefanski. I've been a decent Stefanski believer, if you will. I'm going to go two Bernie heads. How could I not be, right? How can my mind not be changing on Kevin Stefanski after one of the most embarrassing, it's not like the worst loss in Browns history or anything like that, but the loss to the Saints was downright embarrassing, right? It's at home, cold weather, hard-nosed AFC North football in December, and you let a team that plays in a dome manhandle you and push you around at the line of scrimmage. That's embarrassing. I've got 4 issues with Stefanski, just like the most recent ones. One, you had 31 pass plays against the Saints when it was negative 31 degrees, and everyone said it's be miserable throwing conditions, and your answer was, I want to throw it more than run it, despite having Nick Chubb in the backfield? Dumbo. Issue number 2, outcoached by Dennis Allen. That's fireable right there. Dennis Allen's a god-awful coach. He was lucky to be with the Saints when Sean Payton retired. Otherwise, he would not be a head coach. Dennis Allen, a dome coach New Orleans Saints football team, came to Cleveland in December and managed the weather better than you, right? Andy Dalton only threw it 15 times. They got exotic. They did wildcat packages. They got creative with the run game. Cleveland did not whatsoever. Now, his biggest strength, my third issue with him, is failing him. He was hired because of his, offensive guru-ness, right? How much of a genius he was in play calling. That's his biggest strength, and it's failing him. He's an awful play caller as of late. What are you good at then? If you were hired to be a play caller and you can't do that right, what are you doing for us? And my fourth issue, I question his leadership. I do. I get to see a leader really take control of this locker room the last 2 seasons when things started to spiral out of control and we're all just coasting off the 2020 season still. I question his leadership. I appreciate everyone for tuning into today's show. Thank you for making us a part of your day. Follow me on Twitter at MatthewPD if you haven't already. I'll see you guys later with more Browns news and rumors.